Sir Amos of Horsley. My sister, Valerie, came back from a season as a waitress at a holiday camp in coastal Norfolk, seemingly a very different person from the one who had travelled there in the spring after 3 years of work as a pharmaceutical dispenser at Boots, Hainault. A very different circle of friends had given her a very different perspective on life. Her best new friend was Mandy, an ambitious young woman who had skills in the artifice of makeup unknown to most other women, especially my sister, a tomboy who was wearing jeans even in the 60s. Mandy set her cap at Arthur, a businessman combining two disparate but successful ventures, pig farming and turf accountancy. When Valerie came back to Barkingside, Mandy went off to winter with Arthur. But Valerie did not come back alone. She brought with her the sweetest dog you ever saw, a pedigree Basenji named Sir Amos of Horsley. Basenjis have interesting characteristics. Their hair is very short, no brushing and combing required or even possible. They have an excellent sense of smell and they don't bark, which is why they were used for elephant hunting in Africa. But they are quite neurotic and very much a one-person dog. Amos loved Valerie, but had a standoffish relationship with everyone else. Although he didn't bark, when left alone, or when separated from his beloved mistress for more than a couple of hours, he howled and howled. My parents had enjoyed excellent relationships with their neighbours for many years, but they began to be severely tested by Amos. My sister took on temporary work as a garage assistant and was compelled to take her dog with her to work, leaving him in her car while she worked the petrol pumps. So, when she was invited to a big party at a nightclub in Norfolk, my parents told her that if she went, she had to take Amos. One of the things Valerie had learnt at the holiday camp was how to drink whisky, copiously, courtesy of Mandy and Arthur. So she suggested that I should go with her so that she could indulge in her newfound passion and I could drive her home after the party. I agreed, and on a Saturday night in November we set off in my Austin Cambridge and arrived at about 9:30. The party was a somewhat tawdry affair, as I recall. There was a band and a floor show, complete with very bored-looking strippers. I knew no one and had nothing but a tired-looking buffet to lighten my evening. But I was introduced to Mandy and Arthur and another farming bookie called Roy. At a certain point in the evening, I realised that my sister was behaving in a very strange way, with a curious smile fixed on her face and an unrecognisable gait. I saw Roy put his arm around her and she flopped onto his shoulder. Something appeared to be not right. Roy started heading backstage, so I left my sausage rolls and went after them. "Roy, I think Valerie's very tired. I need to take her home," I said. "No need," said Roy. There's a settee in the green room. She'll be fine." My sister was scarcely aware that we were having this conversation, but in the end she transferred herself onto my shoulder and I managed to get her back into my car. I was pretty certain that my sister had had more than whisky, and I thought it unlikely that she'd taken anything else knowingly. Amos was delighted to see Valerie. I started the car and tried to select reverse. I parked on an incline and had to reverse upwards, but for some reason reverse was unselectable. The gear stick on my Austin Cambridge was on the steering column and was encased in plastic. To get reverse, I had to pull out the knob on the end of the stick and push the lever down. I switched on the internal light to see what the problem was. Amos. He had chewed the end of the gear stick. There were tiny plastic fragments all over the floor. I looked at Amos. He showed no sign of guilt. I tried to pull out the metal spring which had been attached to the plastic, but to no avail. I looked at my sister. Never had the expression vacant look been so appropriate. I started to release the handbrake, surmising that I might be able to push the car backwards, but the car began to roll forwards towards the boulders that fringed the parking area. Nothing to do but await the next partygoers to leave and hope that they might be strong and sober enough to extricate us from our plight. It was cold, and the fog outside seemed to seep into the car. My sister kept reasonably warm as Amos snuggled up to her. I tried to snuggle up to Amos, but was greeted with a quiet snarl. After what seemed like hours, I heard the sound of people spilling out into the car park. We persuaded a group of young men to push the car back, and at last we were able to leave. We got home around dawn. My sister was still under some influence, and after a long sleep, asked me what had happened the previous night. She was shocked and came to the same conclusion as I did, that she'd been Mickey Finned so Roy could have his way with her. She was a lot more amused than I was about my chewed-up gear stick. I didn't keep my Austin Cambridge much longer. I had to think very seriously whenever I parked to ensure that I always had enough space in front to enable my departure. What of my sister? Oh, she'd been living with Roy on the Costa del Sol for the last 50 years.